Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Andrelczyk Amusement Academy. Today is episode number 15. We are looking at coasters for 2021. So welcome in if this is your first time to Andrelczyk Amusement Academy. I am a real-life theme park designer who teaches how to build realistic roller coasters in RCT2. So, just kind of talk about the history and kind of what goes behind the scenes of things. Then we also have, chats about coasters and all sorts of other things like that. So, today, like I said, we're going to talk about new for 2021 coasters. And welcome into everybody. Welcome, Mavericks. Welcome, AJ. Thank you very much, version 1, for that subscription with Prime. I do appreciate it. It definitely helps keep the channel going and keep making... helping make this thing better. So we have 9 new coasters here, and I chose these. There's a bunch of new coasters for this year that are going to be great out there in the world, but I chose these based on ones we haven't done recently and just kind of a variety of things out there. So there's definitely some notable missing things like Iron Gwazi, like Icebreaker, and Pantheon, but I thought these would be a good mix. And, assuming we have some time at the end, we can certainly take on some of those other ones or just talk about requests or whatever that may be. So, what have we got today? So I guess we got 9 coasters. So we're going to start with the first one here. This is Phoenix. This is a somewhat surprise edition here that came out at the end of the year. This is Dino's Wonder Wheel Park in New York City. It's a Vekoma Suspended Family Coaster. So we'll start a little bit small, and then we'll continue with Vekoma here. I've grouped these by manufacturer this time. We're going to look at Abyssus at Energylandia in Poland, Vekoma LSM. Then we'll jump over to a B&M Hyper, a B&M Dive coaster, a B&M Invert. Then we'll look at a Gravity Group wooden coaster, a Mack launched coaster with some inversions, and then an Intamin Hyper coaster, and finally an Intamin launch coaster with inversions. VelociCoaster. So saving what I expect to be the best coaster of this year for last. So anyway, let's jump in. As we always do, we're going to start over on the coaster database because that's the best place to start. So let's have a look at what we've got going here. So the Phoenix at Dino's Wonder Wheel Park here has is a new model of the suspended family coaster. It's designated the 375 meter version, 1,200 feet, 68 miles per hour, 68 feet high, 34 miles per hour. But let's jump over to the web or the video here. So this is what Dino's Wonder Wheel Park posted. So they're celebrating 100 years, which is cool. And the Wonder Wheel is super cool. If you ever get a chance to go ride it, definitely do it. Alrighty. So if we check this one out, it's not a straight POV, but it's kind of a nice swoopy turn-based inverted coaster. No inversions, as per a lot of these family coasters. But it's got a pretty good collection of corners. This is a nice little overbank here, and then a big kind of climbing swoopy corner out here. And then a couple of little hops here with a helix here towards the end, bridging a roadway right there. And some nice little corners, definitely some high banked stuff, but it looks good. I think it's going to be a pretty fun ride. So let's jump back in and give it a try. I think what was cool about this one is these days we don't get surprised very much by coasters. If you're within the community and you're following this kind of stuff, it really is not surprising when a new coaster comes, or at least we know about the layout, or we have things leaked or whatever that may be, but it's very rare that the whole brand new thing shows up with a video and nobody really knows about it. It's just, hey, surprise, this is going to happen. So I'm also very happy to see that kind of thing, just because I like those kind of surprises. So definitely cool. definitely worth doing. All right, so we're gonna use the B&M track mostly because we don't have many other options. We will go ahead and use the Vekoma trains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll go with 6 here. We'll go ahead and select our trains. So we are. Oops, did I not check the box for other vehicles from ride type? So we'll use the compact inverted coaster. The Mack lover, good. I'm excited to do Hurricane, mostly because those pictures are finally coming out. So now more folks seem to know about it than did the other day, which is always a good thing. Because I've been really eyeing that coaster for a while. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it'll be a great looking ride. All right, so we're gonna go with a relatively small lift hill here, and then come off the lift hill. No pre-drop or anything like that. Really, that's a thing of the past for these types of coasters. We will put one chain piece over the edge, and we're gonna try and make this a little bit of a swoopy turn-based thing. So let's see. We'll start with a little bit of a back and forth here. And it doesn't need to be fast. Remember, this is a family coaster, so we're not out here to set any kind of speed records or drop or height records, things like that. I'm probably going to run into this here. I can maybe actually give this a downward helix. Or no, I can't because the hut's in the way. Now I can. It's not a Mack episode. We're doing one Mack coaster. So we are doing Hurricane at Suzhou Amusement Park. So if you come back in, based on where that is, if you come back in like 3 hours, we'll be there. If you don't have that kind of time, it'll be up on YouTube later. But we actually may consider doing a full Mack episode at some point. I did consider that for other manufacturers. Like I'm gonna do a B&M one at some point. Yeah, no Happy Coaster because we did that in the last stream. So if you go check out the video for 14 or Andrelczyk Amusement Academy 14, the first one that we did for the day was that. Could just do Europa Park. It's definitely nice when the park owns, or when the ride company owns the park. I was actually pretty happy with how that version of the Mack spinner came out, and the fact that we have trains to use now for it, even better. Okay, so we've done kind of this figure 8 start here, and now I'm just trying to get across some of these elements. The 3-tier or 3 clearance height requirement for inverted coasters is a little bit of an annoyance right here. They are relatively independent, yes. So it's not necessarily a full partnership of that kind, but they do utilize each other for testing and things like that. Let's do this actually. Come around. See if I can get clear. There we go. And they aren't that far. The Mack factory is about 20 minutes down the road. It's not too difficult to find. Okay, let's keep going here. Just watching a couple of clips of the POV we just looked at, just to kind of see what the best way to do some of these turnarounds were, just see how they tackled it. But we've got our first bit here. Let's go ahead and simulate this so we can see how the speed is going to shake out. I'm mostly interested in this turnaround back here, which I don't think I'm going to drop this helix after all. Honestly, I really like the new Mack SFC, the suspended family coasters. They're really good rides and surprisingly fun. So it's nice to see more folks getting them, and also custom layouts. They've mostly been busy out in China, but it would be really nice to be able to have this sort of a thing in the US. All right. I think what we'll do is come down and up, and then sort of reverse what we just did. So give it another little helix. This is a little bit separated out from where the ride is, but the whole ride is actually going to be it's pretty spread out when you look at the whole thing. But I'm not yet convinced. Let's see here. All right, we're gonna have some clearance issues dealing with this. All right, let's see if we can get this around. We cannot. It is exciting to see a manufacturer like Vekoma, who, you know, from an enthusiast standpoint, has been very maligned over the years. From a park standpoint, you know, I think they're great. They offered a an affordable product for parks that couldn't necessarily afford the big stuff, and I don't think you can really fault that. But it's nice to see them getting to the point where they're really kind of stepping up their game now, and you know, their price has certainly gone up with it. It's not like Vekoma is the cheap guys anymore. It's they're definitely out there serving up a pretty good product, and their new pricing goes along with that. But I think that's okay. When you have the product, you should be selling it for what it's going. And if they're going to compete against Intamin, B&M, and etc., then I think this is where they ought to be. All right, so I'm kind of happy with how this is coming along right here. I do like this little bit here where they're together. Thinking a little bit about supports, if we were to do supports, we kind of want to make sure that they all line up together. Hey, Hydro Portal, welcome in, champ. Hydro Portal and Hankert were the recent winners of New Elements Grand Tour contest. Go over to anydesigns.com to check out their winning park, which was absolutely incredible. So definitely a cool enter there. Actually, there's a lot of really good parks in this last round, but definitely great to see those guys take home the champs. All right, so let's wrap ourselves up here. Yeah, I am interested in that, Mav, to see about getting that that first of the launched ones. I really think that's going to be a good time whenever that comes around. Okay. Then we'll come. We can go ahead and come up. Actually, we can't come up right there because we have clearance issues. So what we'll do is just go ahead and come on through here up, and then we can add a brake right here if we want to. But for these which only run one train, the brake and the brakes in the station are one and the same. So one of the tricks that I have here, because you'll notice how it almost kind of jerks to a stop, is go in and delete like this much station, and then put your huts wherever you want them to be, but then theme the station out to a full 6 tiles, and then you'll have a nice smooth transition into the final breaks. Alright, so let's have a look and see how this one does. We're going to go ahead and paint it the McDonald's colors. And let's check our speed too, just to see how things go. Lincoln Dog Dash. There was a while there where I feel like Cedar Point or Cedar Fair and Six Flags just had a run on red and yellow paint because everything was red and yellow. But it's definitely subsided a little bit. But they are good colors for sure. So the only comments that I would have on this one, I think I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out on this, but I would suggest that the ending helix is a little bit large. Because you generally want it to get tighter as you go along, so we do have a little bit of a sweeping helix here at the end. But that's probably the main complaint that I would have. Otherwise, I think this is going to work out okay. You could theoretically come up and go around. I don't think we'd be able to get the clearances in there. So like if you came up and circled over top of this steep dive here, but don't dislike it. So we will call that one number 1. Slinky Dog was an interesting coaster too. It has the weirdest layout for a ride. If anybody built that in RCT and shared it, we would probably all complain that it doesn't have any flow. Which is true, but still a fun ride. Definitely lacking in pretty much any kind of forces, but that's what you would expect from a Disney ride with that short of a rider height requirement. Okay, so we are through one already. Let us get on to the next one. So this next one is Abyssus in and this is in Energylandia in Poland, which if you haven't looked at Energylandia before, definitely check it out. They are a powerhouse. 15 coasters that are already operating, 3 more on the way under construction here. 2 for this year, 1 for next year. And there is more on the way beyond that, I can tell you with some certainty. There is a lot going on at this park. Definitely on the map for every enthusiast, I think, or it ought to be. So this is Abyssus. It's already complete. It's already been making some test runs. They are theming the heck out of it. It looks great, and it's going to look even better. But check this out. So we've got this great launch. Actually, this one's got a double launch. So we have a launch at the beginning that goes through a small kind of pre-launch section, and then there are kind of main coaster section. And there's the second, more strong launch that goes into this big climb. Some brakes up here for this holding point as it goes almost vertical, and then into a bunch of inversions and all sorts of interesting stuff. That'd be great if you go in September. Definitely let me know how it is once you go back, because yeah, it's incredible how fast they've grown. And yeah, you're right. And the hill is not the most photogenic. I like this one where there's this loop sticking up and then just this jumble of track below. I think that's a great shot of the ride. But you're right, it is a wonky looking hill here. And we get a couple of those brakes just so they can get that steepness on the drop without creating too much, crazy airtime here at the end. Here's a great construction shot of the thing. And here's what it's going to look like once they get all the theming done. So a lot of this is going to be over water. You can see here this first launch that kind of takes you through a little bit of some turns and things like that, up to the second launch here where it will go across. This is the tall drop section here. There's a loop, a couple airtime hills, this big batwing element, and then all these different trenches and rolls and tunnels. It seems like Energylandia started out with some kind of suspect theming, and then it has since gotten quite a bit better. So let's, I can actually take a look at this YouTube video for this. Use an insider. Oh. So Vekoma offers two versions of this. This is the Super Shockwave. There's the regular Shockwave, which does not have the pre-lift section or the pre-launch section here. The other version is getting built in China right now. It's actually already up in a park called Dragon Valley. So a couple of these subterranean dives, and then we've got our full launch here. Bit of a pause on that hill. Not a stop, but a pause. Big loop. And then through that station into this giant batwing. Oh, they're similar. I mean, they've been building this kind of a style train for a little while. They've got, it's mostly lap bar, but it has over-the-shoulder straps. At this great couple of corners. Pretty long ride as it stands. And up into the brakes. There's kind of a good shot of the whole. Well, let's take a ride, why not? Yeah, that's the challenge on this one, Intamin, because I actually tried to build this on stream a while back when we did our launch coaster stream. I think it was launch coaster. It was either that or Vekoma, and it didn't work. Like, I was trying to do the quarter loops with all sorts of stuff, but it just didn't want to do it. A bit of a pause there. Self-closing restraints are difficult, like they have on a lot of fair flat rides, because if not everybody is paying attention to that, it ends up really poorly. I love this ending here with just all these low to the ground things. That sort of turn and roll is going to become, or already is, kind of the signature thing with these new gen Vekomas. Really fast inversions and things like that. Speaking of fast inversions, once we get to Mack here later on in the day, I think we'll see that too. You're right, though, it is a little bit weird seeing loops on newer coasters, and I don't think you're going to see that many on new Vekomas, because I think they're seen almost more as kind of a gimmicky thing than anything else now. It's more about kind of these rolls and flowy layouts, and I feel like in general the not doing loops is more of kind of the thing now. But I don't know. I do appreciate the preference anyway. I like the look of a good loop sometimes. All right, so let's set it up right here. We're going to use the B&M track only because we don't have a whole lot of options for other stuff. Let's start up a little bit higher. If X7 releases his limb/looping coaster track at some point, that's the one that we would use for pretty much all of this. It's true, though. I just want big corkscrews. Even medium corkscrews, I'll take whatever. All right. So let us go ahead and come on out of the station to that launch location, because it did pause out of the station. We'll go ahead and do that, and then let's give ourselves a little bit of a kick here. Not much. I am always putting a straight piece after our launch, just because I don't think you want to go straight into a curve right after launch. I think it's generally preferred to do this. Yeah, proper dive loops would be good, because when we get that, we're going to get the ability to do proper zero-G rolls also. Alright. Not a huge fan of that, so let's do... Let's see. I think I'm with you there, Hydro. That definitely has a banked curve, or a banked curve drop into a diagonal would be huge. Okay. We're just doing a quick little start here. Nothing super major. What we want to do is set ourselves up for a main launch. Enable some clearances so we can go underground here. Go ahead and kind of nest this element here, which is actually a little bit too much. I'm not feeling that. But we can do this. That seems like it has a proper clearance. Hey, Coffee, we are making a Vekoma LSM. This is similar to Abyssus at Energylandia. So we're just trying to finish up that pre-launch section so then we can get into the proper launch now. Let's go ahead and test this out and see how this hits. Alright, we're a little slow. Let's give ourselves a better boost here, see what happens. We need to move it back and give ourselves just a little bit more space, because yeah, I think we will. Yeah, we're already at 29. Let's go ahead and we're just going to launch right out of the station. Wait, it feels slow. Okay, yeah, that is definitely slow. I also kind of want to change the massing on this just to give ourselves a little bit more. All right, we'll call that. Yeah, I know, I was trying to see kind of what that maximum speed wanted to be. I do prefer to use chain lift still, just because I think it's easier, but the boost is a nice feature to have. Alright, let's go ahead and put a 67 mile per hour launch in here. And actually, one of the things that the real one does kind of nicely is has this little like airtime hill up into that launch. But let's give ourselves just a gap here. Well, and I wish that all the boosters on all the track types were the same, and that you only had to adjust the. I wish you only had to adjust the acceleration. I think that would be cool if that were an option. All right, so we're trying to make this wonky drop of sorts. Let's see where this lands. Because wow, that's ugly. Oof. I'll add to our piece request list a better transition to steep and vertical drops. And that's not awful. Not good either. Oh, that looks just terrible on this angle. Ugh. Well, we're gonna keep it. Because why not? Okay. So put in our looping here. Hey, Space K, welcome in. Large climbing turn into a steep twist. I'll give it a try. So you're thinking almost down here? Something similar to that? I actually think you're probably right. I was a little unconvinced here in the beginning portion, but I think you're probably correct. Maybe we're even twisting it late. When you say steep to vert, are you thinking, you know, that kind of steep to vert? Let's go ahead and curve this. Because I don't hate that. I think that's actually quite nice. Like, I think that actually looks pretty good. Because it has that elongated crest. And it has good pacing over there. Good work, team. Well done. Thank you for the suggestions. Okay, and then let's see how we're doing here. Wait on that pacing on that loop because it could be a little bit fast. I don't know how quickly I'm losing speed with a 4-car train. Okay, that feels appropriate. Because that is something that I may do, just depending on how we're holding up at the end here, is work on some of the massing. Okay, that runs right into it, which I don't want to do. Yeah, and I'm still debating, you know, whether or not we're gonna do the it's not gonna fully pause, it's just gonna slow down, but you're right though. I could do that. If Zara was here, he'd be telling me that. Trying to get over top of this or underneath of this launch. I didn't necessarily want to go too high, but Okay, so now comes what I'm not quite sure what we want to do here. Is you're right though, diagonal would look better. Probably. Let's do that. Hang on. Because I'm not convinced that there's a good way to do any of these rolls here. So I kind of want to do almost like a pretzel knot. Which may not be awful. Bear with me here. This is sort of kind of like what they have on VelociCoaster, just without the pacing issues. Oop. Yeah, I don't hate it. I just hate the pacing. I do hate this initial transition, though. Let's fix that. And then we'll come in this way. Deep drop on the diagonal into the trench. I would get it closer. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna run right into myself. Oops. Let's you want to do the roll outwards. And then down here on this side, we're going to do the quarter loop. Only because it gets us a couple lower, which is fine, because I do want to be a little bit lower this side around. There you go. We will still play with the massing a little bit, I think. And this may let me get back up underneath now. Cross the other way just to give it some differentiation. Yep. This one. Gonna run into things. You will. Not quite. But I am pretty happy with how that's turning out. Go ahead and expose this bit of track. This bit of track. Okay. Feeling good about this so far. Let's Transition across like that. Because we need to get a fast roll in here somewhere. That's something we need to think about. And two, if we wanted to center the station where we can put back our straight section before the launch track, so this launch is a little longer than it needs to be for one, but we could put back that overall look. Not yet convinced, because I'd love to be able to circle back across. Thanks for coming by, Fred. Appreciate you stopping in. We're getting hung up a little bit. A lot of the real thing is further down here. I don't think we're going to be at that point right now looking at this. Let's kind of throw in our brake run, which I know we can't. We want to simulate it. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we can put a curve on that if we need to. But we're kind of working back to that point now, because it is a pretty long brake run for sure. What I'm thinking is that maybe we run into some kind of an off. I kind of like these where you're coming up and banking in the one direction and then you go up and bank in the other. It's something you wouldn't have seen on coasters 10 years ago, but now I feel like it's not an out of the question element. We're just trying to make sure we still look good from a number of dimensions or directions, because I think that's one of those things you really have to watch out for on these kind of coasters, or any kind of coaster really, is building yourself a coaster that looks fantastic in one angle and then it looks bad in the others. So there's some of that when people ask about coaster design. There's some of that intangible things for RCT, like when earlier I was going to curve this one in the same direction. It looks fine from here, but then when you go on this side, it would be basically stacked on top of each other, and you really want to avoid that. Like rides that have all that overlapping track, you don't want that, but you want sort of a track that might nest inside of each other or create kind of smooth crossovers. Those sorts of things is what you really want to aim for instead. Alright, I do think I want to do something in this one's got me stuck. What we could also do is abandon that idea entirely. Come on up in this direction. I don't think we're gonna have the space here. Poo. A little bit short of that. Yeah, so 30 here. We're gonna run right into that track again. We're at 15, so as long as we're at 25, we can cross over the launch track. but is that worth it? Could try and reverse this. We maybe onto something here. I think we found it. There we go, because we're nestled into this curve. So that's going to look good from most of these angles. And ideally, this would continue through that banking and then out to the other side, but with RCT as it is, you got to flatten yourself and then go through, which generally for me means I'm going to go the other way, so then it looks like a continuous roll. I don't dislike that. I think I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. Kind of, okay, we're right back to the same. I do think we have to drop it here. And don't necessarily want to go straight back to the other direction, but that may be our best method here. All right. Go ahead and color this. Let's go ahead and get our head in the game for the real thing. Like a boat theme. Okay. If we come back on the brake run, turn ourselves, we're going to build backwards for a minute. That may be the way to go if we can figure out how to get there. Because then you have this nice wrap of the launch track with some great crossovers there. A little bit too tight on those corners, but okay. Not to say we've got to do that roll right here. We can do other things. Yeah, we could do that. Could do some kind of a corkscrew roll. 1 second to play with this. I don't like how it sits under the loop like this, but yeah, I'll just stop by saying I don't like this. It's turned out better than I anticipated it was going to. 1, 2, 3, 4. How did I miscount that? I totally miscounted that. Let's go flat. And then up, then to Maverick Suggestion. And corkscrew into the final element here. Which I don't, love, but I don't hate either. A little bit on the shorter end is the only, well, not the only, but one of the complaints that I have. But I don't dislike it. Have it jump up or down one before the cork. Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's not a bad thing. Let's just see how that runs, out of curiosity. Let's go ahead and do. We'll do a block here. We're not going to give ourselves a block break on the other one because it's not going to fit correctly. But I will put a block break here, which will let us run 3 trains. Or 2 trains. Okay, and then I do want to. Let's go ahead and adjust the mass a little bit. Let's see what the mass is on these. To 680. So we'll do rides list. Number 2 is 05. So ride set mass 005. Let's put this up to 900. See what that does for us. It might actually end up being too much. Okay. But that nice drop, which I actually think turned out really, as you guys said, remarkably well. Yeah, not 900. I think that's too quick. Let's try 700. Because really we didn't want to change it a whole heck of a lot, just enough to get that roll and the end of the batwing a little more quick. Or faster, as is the grammar. It's interesting, I didn't actually know that with the thing, although actually I think this pacing is right. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So we'll stick with that pacing, and to not have to reset it again, I'll go ahead and leave it at that. Okay, so there is our number 2. That's Abyssus. Okay, done. Okay, so next up, since that one took a while, and I know I'm lagging a little bit. So we're looking at this ride in Hotgo Dreamworld. The disappointing thing about this one is it is likely not going to open in 2021 because the park is currently more or less abandoned. It's listed as 2021 just because it keeps kicking out each year. There were some issues with the ownership and the Chinese government, and you know how those things work. It's not looking so hot. So you can see there's actually two B&Ms in this image. There's a wing coaster in the back, and then there's this hypercoaster in the front, which I actually think looks like one of the cooler B&M hypercoasters that's out there. So what can we see from this? So we can see a great shot here looking at the whole thing. It's a pretty big hill, first hill, into a second floater airtime hill with the kind of Shambhala style helix, and then some speed hills, another hill, a turn, and then there's another turnaround over here, another hill over top of a pathway, a kind of flat curve, and then there's another helix on this side. It's a pretty long layout. Here you can see the elements here, two long sections that I would assume probably have water splash type, faux water splash elements in them. Already faded a fair bit. Been up for a while, but and here you can see that ending. Here's a helix, upward helix to towards the end to the brakes. It's got a long way to go, and unfortunately we are a long way from being finished. If we look at the maps for this, you can see the park is a long way off, but you take our standard size wing coaster here, which is pretty compact, pretty small. And let's look at this B&M. Whew, heck of a layout. So, super impressive station for one. Nice big lift and drop. Airtime hill. Shambhala helix. Speed turn. Like you can see how low to the ground this speed turn is. Nice big hill over top of this transport type ride. Kind of a little curved hill here. Then another curved hill, a dive, splash element, another hill, curve, helix, another hill, curve, and brakes. It's a huge ride, like absolutely huge ride. So I do hope that it gets finished. Is it an X-Flight clone? It is not, but it is close to one. So take a look real quick. So it's got similar elements to it. You can see this one's been complete for a while. Actually, both of these have been complete for a little while. But this one is similar, or well, the same as at Hua Brothers World in China also. Is there a good picture overall? You can kind of see the same thing here. It's definitely a compact layout here, so it's sort of similar to a Swarm / X-Flight layout, but not quite the same. Thankfully, this one at least opened, but the Hotgo Dream World Park has not. It's somewhat of a shame because there's 3 Hotgo parks. There's one next door that's got a gravity group coaster that did open, and then there's an indoor one that has a knockoff boomerang that also opened, and then this one, which arguably has the best coasters in the whole thing, has not opened. So such a shame. Difficult, a little bit difficult to see. There's that speed hill down here, which I think looks super cool. But let us jump on back in and give it a try. No, these have never opened. These rides were built and have never seen the light of day, and unfortunately probably never will, which is kind of a hard one to swallow when the layouts are so nice and they're such nice B&Ms. So it's a lot of millions of dollars just sitting there rotting. And unfortunately, you can only sit for so long and still end up with a quality product. Okay, so you got a couple of options here with this one. We can go with a steeper lift hill and then like that a near vertical drop on this if you wanted to go kind of here. Those rides never opened, unfortunately. The park has never been completed construction. They've been together for a good while, a couple years now, but I think the Chinese government and the owner got involved in some things, and there is not a terribly good chance that it's going to keep going. My hope is that the rides are offered for sale and somebody picks them up, although this hypercoaster is going to be tough to find a home for, because it's pretty customized to the site. So we can do it like this, where we end up with a kind of ugly drop and thing here, and the steepness of the drop would kind of lend itself to that, but I think I'm going to go for the more traditional, just regular lift hill, which is far less steep than the current B&M lift hills are. This is 30 degrees here. Most B&M lift hills are around 42 degrees, but we're going to go with this anyways, and we'll go from here a little bit later. All right, let's do one more on the up here, and now we can do a couple of things. We can try and do our steep hill here, but this always looks bad. Always looks bad, I think. Some are. It's not all the same. The steepest they've gone, I think, is 46 degrees, which is Shikra and Griffin, those sorts of dive coasters. But that's about it. So this is an option that we can do. I'm not sure it's a good option. You can also just space it out a little bit more, like this. This kind of hurts. The other option, which is probably more in line with what we want to do, is just get right into it. So we'll start there. If you want to go back and adjust it a little bit later, we can. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one an 8-car train. You can do 7, 8, or 9 with a B&M Hypercoaster. 9 is more of the old school ones. We haven't seen too many 9s anytime recently. You can also go ahead and up this lift hill to like an 8 miles an hour, or even faster. But I'll give you some extra speed to work with. Give ourselves a nice floater hill here. All B&Ms have floating airtime. They do not have ejecting airtime. No matter what an enthusiast tells you, they do not have true ejector airtime because those restraints can't take it. Okay, let's see where we are now. Yeah, we get a nice little pause at the top. You should see a pause at the top of your hill. Yep, it certainly feels like it. They just don't. They do not go to -1 forces. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and try and get our Shambhala style helix in here. And instead of kind of how theirs does it, we're going to do a little bit of a crossover maneuver here. Lets us get this kind of cool crossed hill thing going on. Ooh, what do we have here? Some null objects, perhaps. Quite sure what we put here in the past, but anyway. Okay, so this may be a little... Okay, that's actually perfect. Okay. So we're coming diagonally through here. Next step is this kind of curved hill that they have on that one that leads into the first of the tunnel crosses. Not the nicest looking element for sure. But yeah, I believe you're right, Mav. It's negative, but not past something like a negative 0.5. The thing with since we didn't do the totally steep lift hill, we're a long way from home on the station, so we're going to have to do it a little bit differently as far as that goes. That's going to be too much, I think. What was this one? This was 95. One's 80. Could be alright. Let's see. Actually, that one goes straight into the turnaround. Got that cool speed hill right there, speed corner there. Nice floater hill. And a weird curved hill. Okay, so we can still do 80 just fine, but let's go ahead and try and get this in. Okay. I would argue that this is not one of B&M's most photogenic rides, but we'll take it over another one for sure. I don't like that. Don't necessarily like that right next to either. You could do flat here, a tighter turnaround perhaps. There we go. We're getting that same. Are they? Oh, they sure are. Did I plow into this? I bet I did. Damn. Damn, I did. Well, shit. Okay. Then let's back to the. Can do just one of these guys. We'll call it that. Let's see how the clearances end up looking on this. That second hill is going to be a little bit too big, I think. The speed's not awful. It clears that hill decently well. So the real one kind of angles up and then down, and it's got a helix around that way, but I've got to get back home over here. So let's do something like this. This hill might end up being a little bit fast, but do 2 in a row. One of the things too to note on this ride is this is an exceptionally long coaster without a mid-course brake run. Granted, it's China, so operations mean it's never going to be required, but it is pretty impressive that this ride is what I would suggest one of the longer B&M hypercoasters out there, but does not have a mid-course brake run. Just something interesting there. All right. Okay, we'll finish with a couple of hills here. Actually, maybe not. See how our speed's doing on the way back. Okay, actually it glides kind of nicely over those. Okay. Then what this allows us to do is it gets us enough that I can say this would be the brake run here. Then we'll have we'll do the transfer track before the lift hill a la Fury 325. Yeah, and actually we can give it a couple of, because it'll probably hit the brakes at that higher elevation first. Then we'll go that way. We can put our first round of brakes up here. Far higher than it needs to be. Okay. And I would expect we could run 3 trains on this. After all, something like Orion does. Well, I suspect they've probably designed it to run 3 trains. Let's do ourselves that at least. Okay. We've got orange, teal, and call it like a. It almost feels like a yellow. All right. We have a nice wide layout here. Speed holding pretty well. You get that nice pause, that nice glide over top of the hills. You don't want it too slow. You don't want it slow enough to matter. Not bad. Then we will go ahead and say that our transfer track is right here. And note, if you're doing a themed, realistic transfer track, B&M does not use the actual track within these. It used to, not really so much anymore. It's sits on some stabilization wheels, and then it has full access underneath the track for the train. Okay, there's number 3, and then just as a note, we did say that this section was here for stuff to go through it, like a pathway. Just as a reminder of that, there's a pathway through it. Okay, not too bad. All right, let's keep rolling on. So the next one up is Emperor. Emperor is a B&M Dive coaster, which is currently being wrapped up in San Diego at SeaWorld. And depending on how coronavirus goes this year, I'm expecting we'll see it, hopefully. I think that goes for all these coasters, but California being especially restrictive now. So dive coasters have had kind of an interesting history in that they started out very simple. Oblivion, G5 in Taiwan, where there really wasn't a whole lot of layout. It was a drop and turn, and that was pretty much it. Then SheiKra came along and said, well, we can make them a lot bigger, and we can also add an inversion and some other corners and make it more of a ride. And they've sold a number of those larger ones, the 8 and 10 across trains. But they've also offered what they call the D6, which is the standard original 6 across trains, floorless now, that do more coaster layouty type stuff, like a more traditional coaster. So it's not just about the vertical drop, it's also about the inversions and everything else. I feel like Emperor is one of the, or will be one of the best to do that. I'd say right now Valkyria at Liseberg is the best one to do it. But and I will say I really liked Valkyria. It is my favorite of the B&M vertical drop coasters. But this is nice. All right, so is there a video of the? What I'm actually gonna do is let's go ahead and look up Valkyria just to give you an idea of what these rides are doing. Who are we gonna watch? Watch the Extreme Coasters Network. Right. Commercial, blah, blah, blah. There we go. So thanks to these guys for the POV today. Find the POV. Here we are. Liseberg is a great park up in Gothenburg, Sweden. If you ever get a chance to go, totally recommend it. It is super cool, a really, really nice park. So here's what kind of stands these out as what they are, is this holding brake on the drop. We hold ourselves right here before the vertical drop into the tunnel. Big Immelman inversion. This is a pretty standard deal. I think pretty much all the big ones have an Immelman right after. Then this one's got these great roll here. It's got that overbank and some high banked corners. And then this one has a slow roll here, right here, towards the end, and into the brake. So they're still not the same kind of length as you would see on, say, a B&M Floorless or something like that, but they are a lot longer than the older ones that you might see. Let's see if there's any good shots of this one built up. You can see we've got this Immelman into an overbank of sorts, a kind of half roll, half curve, corkscrew, and then a big turn into the brakes over on this side. So let's try and do something similar to that. Okay, so we'll select our dive coaster, although we'll be changing out of this here in a little bit. Stay 3 off the ground, why not? Okay. Yeah, you're right, Hydro, especially these. We will go ahead and give this a little bit of and I would also argue that some kind of a smoother roll into corner element would be a big deal. All right. So with any B&M before the lift hill, if it's not right after the station, you want to have a couple of breaks to get the ride at the same speed as our lift. Actually, let's stretch this out just a little bit, because while we are going steep, we don't want it to be too steep. Let's see how far off of the ground we are with a half loop. That's bigger than it needs to be. So because of that, we'll stop here. Because really, we don't want the half loop to be too big. All right, we'll call that complete. Okay. We'll put our block brake here, and then we will have a hold brake for drop. This is a piece that's only available for the vertical drop coaster here. Okay, so now, excuse me, we are going to, not make it like that. Do this. Is going to allow us to have some much smoother cornering. Okay. So there's kind of our first bit, and what we'll go ahead and do here, we can take off this block brake so we can simulate. Yeah, I just want to be able to, if let's go back here real quick and see. There's a good shot of the element that I'm looking for. This element right here, where you're coming up and it's basically a zero G-roll that ends in this banked corner coming down. I'm really looking for something like that. I would love to see that sort of an element on on here. So we've got a little bit going on with this. We can't do overbanked corners, unfortunately. Where did I put another block? Alright, continuous circuit mode. Oh. The one thing that we will need to look at here is I'll probably still go ahead and use these trains just because of the 6 across, but we don't have these trains able to do the sprites for all of the inversions. So unfortunately, we're sort of out of luck in that regard. See how that goes. Might be a little bit too tall. Yeah. A little slow coming out of there, and a little fast coming through there. But we'll go ahead and back down on this one. Just fine. We can speed this up a little bit. Do a bigger one, perhaps. The compactness is what I find interesting on Emperors. It's definitely a very compact ride. And you get the sort of quick element corner here. And then the real one's got this giant corkscrew coming along, which we can't really do. We don't have the huge corkscrew elements. I can do a hill that gets us over top of there. That roll's going to turn out being way too fast. Way too fast. That's fine. I will put a flat bit in here just to stretch that out maybe a little bit. Problem is, I'm not totally thrilled with that. 1, 2, 3. Because actually, it would let us do something kind of fun at the end. If that was just ever so slightly larger. Because we went back to the banking, that's why. See if clearance is going to let us get away with it. I don't think it will. No, not so much. Well, let's go ahead too and get our colors in place, although it's more teal almost, which I kind of like. I'm actually a huge fan of the colors on the real ride. Four, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Let's do this. Come right out of the station with our we'll do a smaller corner. Then we'll do our brakes here. Yeah, it's definitely more compact than I think you're going to see a lot of the B&M Dive coasters, but it also, I feel like, appropriately matches what you're getting for Emperor. It's a little compact, sort of self-contained thing. The Emperor doesn't really have interaction with other rides. Let's go ahead and do this. Give that one a little bit of space so it doesn't sit on the corner. All right, let's see how this one runs. Oh, whoops. First, let's change this to a block. Okay, we're at circuit mode. Okay. We have the lift at 4. It doesn't need to be 4. But it could probably be... It could probably... we don't want it faster right now just because it's going to sit there and stop anyways. Now I'm interested to see how long that's going to sit there on the block break before this one gets back to home, because it might not be for very long, because this is a long turn here. About 5 seconds. Okay. That corkscrew is too fast, as also as a point of interest. Let's see what that's actually doing through there. We're at 43, 34, 53, 50, 34, 35 at the top of that. We can also go in here too if we wanted. And I don't want to go any further. We'll just stick with that. That also gives us this weird bump, which I'm not a huge fan of. I'd almost just as soon, and I think I will, I would just as soon take the speed issue than have to deal with that as a thing. Okay. We'll call it at that. And be done. You could use a trim for sure. I try not to use trims because I don't. If you need a trim to make your coaster work right, it probably means you built the coaster wrong. So in that instance, I would say I built this coaster wrong as far as where that corkscrew goes. In the interest of time for this, I'm going to point out that it's too fast and probably leave it at that. But I think, given the opportunity, I think the best way to do it would be to have this large corner up and then quick corner down, and then we would corkscrew or flat spin over at the higher level, so then it's a little bit slower. You want it to be in the 30s in there, and 30s entering, and then something less throughout. You don't want it to be an imperceptible speed change through the element. You want it to at least see a little bit of a change. And if you want something that has all the the sprites, you can use X7's 8 or 10 across. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, Intamin, is if it's a mass issue, then okay, I get that. That's not... You can't easily fix that. I do think these trains are a little bit big. And what would be interesting to see, though, is how the 8s would run, because the 8s have a much lower mass, so they slow down very quickly. I'm a little bit curious to see how these run on here. Of course, these look silly going through a regular corkscrew in this game because all the elements are too small. I mean, in this instance, the roll element should be at least 4 tiles each rather than 3. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, see, we're already creeping through that one. I don't even know if we're going to make this hill. Actually, we do. We're about 5 miles per hour slower than we were before. Actually, that I don't feel too bad about as far as speed goes. Like, slightly better out of curiosity. These are 600. And then let's look at our, what is it, 6-seater twister trains, which is a stupid name for these. They should just be called vertical drop bars. These are 2,000. Ride set mass. Oh, need to see what it is. 008. Let's give it half the mass and see what that does for ourselves. I may adjust it one more time, but then we'll move on in the sake of time. We're running a little long, but not too bad. One more coaster, and then we'll have our break time. I'll speed this up. I'm already liking this a little bit better. It doesn't feel crazy fast. Alright, a little bit fast still, but not too bad. That's better than it was before, so we will call that done and be happy with it. Okay. Now it is time for one of my more anticipated coasters of 2021. This is Monster at Grönlund in Sweden. This is the first B&M inverted coaster in a lot of years. Since I think 2012 perhaps. So this is our layout for the thing, and if you're familiar with Grönlund, you know how compact that park is. So they basically built this coaster where there is no space. And it's kind of a feat of engineering to begin with. They cut open a giant hole, put the station and brakes in it, and then put the rest of the ride above a bunch of buildings, supported by these interesting column supports, which we've seen on some of the Vekoma suspended family coasters, but never on a ride of this size. So it's definitely a departure as far as B&M's style goes, and it's a pretty impressive layout squeezed into here. Not a standard invert layout by any means, because there are absolutely no loops. There's a 0G roll to start, which I think is super cool, followed by like a junior Immelman, then another flat spin and another flat spin. Actually, when this layout was first released, there was another roll here at the end. You can kind of see where the original layout went, but this one was taken out in favor of just some kind of hills here at the end, which I'm actually okay with. It would have been kind of neat to see that last roll, but I will take it as it is. So the ride is called Monster, a little bit uncreative name, but that's fine. Here's that big tube support. Great looking coaster. So yeah, this is a pretty impressive compact footprint. So they're still in the process of building it. It's taken quite a while. They started building this about 3 years ago, and it's still taking some time to get them there just because there's so much to work through. Now, granted, the park wasn't able to open last year because of coronavirus, and Sweden's was pretty locked down during that time. So hopefully this year they'll be able to get up and running. So let's have a look and see what we want to do here. So I'm going to go ahead and keep mine above the ground to start with, at least. Go ahead and I was in the mood ahead of time and pull that out. We're going to use the steep lift hill. Which could lead us right into a big curving drop. This is sort of the standard that you expect out of a B&M inverted coaster. Okay. This is going to have a 6-car train, which is smaller than their usual ones, but this is a smaller coaster overall. You can, when you're doing an inverted coaster, you're looking at either 6, 7, or 8-car trains, usually 6 or 8. Your standard is going to be 8, while Alpengeist does have 9. Alpengeist is the only one that has 9, and unless you're building something to that scale in that same era, don't build 9. See how that's going to be a little bit too big, I think. Actually, not bad. It does fit pretty well, but let's first cut this up a little bit. This is a little bit larger than Groenland's. Ooh. Well, that time it didn't make it. What we can do is more of a banked turn solution. Because the real one is more of a, what they call a junior Immelman, or what RCTV calls a junior Immelman, which is sort of a halfway Immelman. This is another one of those where we've run into quite a few today, where the lack of a large corkscrew is going to kill us a little bit. We want to roll to the right. But it's all about these kind of tight corners and kind of interesting elements as far as those go. Down one, and that lets us get up and over our station again. We're looking at Monster. Intamin, this guy. Not quite the same deal. Just we're a little bit larger than this one, and we're not doing quite the same sort of thing, but I don't think we're too far off. Now we'll throw in that corkscrew. Alright, so we have our sort of junior Olin type thing. Our second roll. Yeah, it's so unique, and that's really what I love about this ride, is that it's just doing things that we haven't typically seen. And I love when B&M does that, because they're so anti that in real life, that it's cool to see parks help parks and their design team, pushing kind of what they usually do. And it's not so much that B&M is necessarily anti that, but they're very safe in their designs. So the fact that they are doing interesting new things is super exciting to me. I was hoping to cross over right here, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. There's a little bit of meandering with this coaster that's a little bit tough to kind of deal with as far as the overall layout goes, just because there's not really a great space to kind of run all of this. What I can do is let's corkscrew over top of station. And that will let us get a little bit of flow here, where we'll sort of match that same element. So kind of like that, how this one's nestled inside the other one. Just kind of knowing that we want to poop. Yeah, I was really hoping to get our one more roll in here, but I don't think we're gonna do it. No. Ideally, we're crossing over there. I just don't. I think with the way that the drop comes off of this corner, I don't think it's going to work out quite the way we want it to. We've got some speed now. Get some of those low to the ground corners here. We have to keep it at that height. Only because we don't have the clearances that we need for the rest of it. Okay. And then lastly, let's try and level this out. Can't cross there. Ideally, I was going to come across and then have a diagonal brake run. We drop this. Good. Oh no, we can't. This is the problem when you get into compact inverted coasters, is you end up with a lot of clearance issues where you just can't really do anything with, which this would be a fun thing to kind of support and do a proper station on. Let's also figure out, because we know we're going to have at least that much worth of exit path, or exit the ride. But I would say, of among the coasters out there for next year, granted, I'm ecstatic about VelociCoaster, Iron Gwazi, those types of rides. I know for sure I'm going to ride those just since of where I am located. But this one for me stands out as one of the rides I'm most excited about for this year. I think it's going to be a spectacular ride. Far off is this? 1, 2. Granted, all of these parks still have to get everything open, which is going to be a challenge here with just everything as it is. Hopefully, most or all parks out there can open next year. So I'm going to get this virus out of the way first. Still not quite happy with how this is ending up. I can get through there. That's cool. Let's see what can be done with that. Okay, sure we can deal with this. Hey, Belgian guy, how are you? Welcome in. Out of all the ones that I'm building today, I think VelociCoaster probably wins for today, only because I do think it's going to be spectacular. This one, though, I'm super excited about. I'm really, really looking forward to being able to ride Monster at some point in my life. All right, let's see how this runs. Let me go ahead while I've got. And that's the thing, is I was just saying before you came in that I've got VelociCoaster, Icebreaker, Iron Gwazi. I've got all those kind of here in my backyard, so it's more of a, man, I would really love to do Monster if I look at that, but then again, you also look at something like that Ride to Happiness, which, stupid name, but great looking ride. I would love to ride Kondaa. I'd love to do all of those different ones, but until I can get there. Yeah, the one at Plopsa Land, the Extreme Spinning Coaster. Terrible name, but so be it. I will take a ride with a terrible name that's still there than one that's not. So the thing for this one is, and one of the kind of big caveats on this one is, if you were gonna do this layout, you gotta shoestring this to have a diagonal brake run, because this is gonna fly into this last corner here, and that's not okay. Or are we there where we have diagonal blocks now? Okay, well, that'd be great. Whatever we got. Space, are you still in the chat? You want to tell everybody about that? But I would love to get to that point, hopefully here soon. It's something that he's working on. Now, granted, we don't know if it's going to be merged or not. There's still some questions there. One of the things that we were playing with was block brakes that were speed adjustable, or that you could roll it into a whole length of brake run, which is great. But granted, it's no good to us really until it can be merged into the OpenRCT game, just since we wouldn't be able to use it on the main thing. I would say who cares about sprites, but it's not going to be merged until the sprites are done, which would be the difficult part of that. Alright, so here's our layout, which I'm sure is going to have horrendous stats. And it sure does. Just because we don't have the brakes here, but that's alright. I'm okay with that. Yeah, that's the one that I've been testing for him, the block brakes that don't default to 4. Definitely a nice feature there. Okay. So now we are off to our final 4, and the first one up is going to be Leviathan, and Leviathan is at SeaWorld in Australia, unrelated to the SeaWorld in the United States. It's currently under construction, probably headed towards their summer opening. So we can see where everything is here. So with this piece of sort of suspect art, we can see kind of more or less what this ride is going to be doing. So we've got a lift hill here, flat first turn, nice big straight drop, and then a couple of little airtime hills here, high banked corners. It looks like this first loop sort of takes us all the way around. Kind of a big overall turnaround here. Then we go back the other way, wrap around this center waterfall thing, and then do a couple of these crossovers and turnarounds that we would expect for this sort of a ride. Lots of little airtime hills at the end, so not necessarily the concept art of the future. I think our very own Dr. Dirt could be doing quite a lot better markups in his game. Okay, so let's have a look. Back to the game. All right, so let us start on a station. We'll put it over here. We're going to go ahead and use the Timberliner trains. These are another Space Case special. Timberliner trains, 12 cars apiece. The 12-car trains are huge. They're going to need 6 tiles for your station. I'm a little bit hesitant to use the diagonal lift hill just because it's so much lift hill. Actually, in fact, I'm not. I think what we'll do is go this way. And we'll go ahead and do ourselves a diagonal drop. Honestly, quite large. Back this down just a minute. That's interesting that they're the same as the Millennium Flyers. They're great trains. Definitely one of my favorites to use. Okay, and then we'll put a nice little double up hop here. All right, let's let this go ahead and do its test. We'll also go ahead and paint this. Oh, not that color. Paint this a proper brown. The challenge once we do major elements in a diagonal setting is that now we are fixed to that setting and or fixed to that view, because this view is wrong and this view is going to be wrong because it's not going to look right. So we're sort of limiting ourselves in some sense to kind of what we can do with this, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Okay, so we'll come through here, our little speed hill. Now, gravity group coasters should have a number of kind of CCI type elements in them because that's where they came from. So you're going to see a lot more of those sorts of elements in these layouts. Let's see how that pacing is at the 60 height. Probably going to be too slow. I'd say that's probably a little bit too slow. That gets us at 55, which might be a little bit better. a little bit better. So the pacing is still not quite where we want it to be, but that's okay. And then we want this one to pop out on the other side here. They're basically changing directions. We did our loop, which is mostly left-hand corners, and now we'll go back and do our loop doing right-hand corners. Okay, we can keep this kind of wide enough here, and come back with one of these guys where we do the hill in the one direction and then kind of reverse ourselves and go in the other direction. Ideally, I want this to line up very nicely with, oh, not like that. Flatten out and line up with the other ride here, which is what we're doing here. Now comes the test. Can we get this underneath of this one, which we, shoot, probably cannot. We cannot, unfortunately. But we can do a little bit smaller, which will work. We don't have that turned on. Well, I appreciate it, Space Game. Maybe one day we'll get to that point. I think a big thing for me with wooden coasters is trying to get tracks to line up. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just trying to get all those to line up and save structure. A lot of that's what makes the difference as far as just elements go. Let's see. The challenge we're going to run into here is that we're already into the side. We could do something like this. Kind of seems like something that Gravity Group might actually do. No iBox today. Not today, but we did do one the other week. And we did the Raptor the other 2 Raptors last week. Okay, and then we're really just trying to wrap up the layout at this point. So that can take a couple of different forms here. We've got a largely left-hand bias coaster so far. So we've got left, left, right, left, right, or left, left, right, right, left, right. So kind of want to wrap it around in this direction. That puts us up underneath the lift hill or next to it? Next to it. Except we're going to run into this one right here. So that's not going to work. But we can do that. Now the only question is, what's the best way to get this back to the station? I have our brake run wrapping around the backside here, but I don't think we're going to go through with that. I think it might make sense to do something else entirely. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of those outwardly banked hills. Need to look at a couple of these smaller hills here. We will definitely not be building on the ground, as I know I am always the first to say is do not build coasters on the ground. Wooden coasters are one exception, but we're not going to do that today. We'll go ahead and build here. So I think that will finish it. Or kind of the one space there, so we'll put a space in our hill. Okay. There's our brake run. Here's our station, and now we can do kind of a typical odd start to the layout. Do that. Rid of this longer end of the station. That should do it. Alright, one extra set of brakes here. I'm gonna put in a dummy block here. Okay. Let's get our second train and go. This is a bit of a weird thing, but kind of sort of what you would see at an old CCI gravity group maybe. But really what we're doing is just a lot of really quick corners and things like that. I like the black better. Alright, so let's see how our pacing is on this. It's reasonably long. We've kind of looped ourselves around here 3 times. 26, a little bit slow on that, but good airtime over that hill. Nice drop here. This is the slow bit here, 22. It's not too bad. Some of the gravity groups do have some pacing issues. Taking advantage of that sort of hill and turn today. We've done that a couple of times. We got our final curve over here. I did do one of those off-camber hills here. back through and drop this section. And then we have our diagonal brake run on this side. Something to note is you probably want to go back and look at a few of these kind of hills where when you go down, still bank it and then unbank it on the hill. We'll do that here too. Oh, do you mean this guy here? Is it simply because of the flat and then not? Because we could simplify this or smooth this out a little bit so there's the flat, which I kind of maybe like better. Looking at the terrible concept art for the real thing, it seems to be there is some kind of an element of sorts like that. Fixing our banking on a couple of these. Yeah, I'd sacrifice my straight piece at the bottom here. The nice thing with diagonals is that everything looks stretched anyways, so it works. We will call that one. Okay. Well, let's call that done. All right, so 3 more. We have 1 mock and 2 Intamin. So the next one that we have up is Hurricane Roller Coaster at Suzhou Amusement Land Forest World, which checks all of the Chinese name boxes. And this one is just now getting some more attention. I've seen it posted a whole lot today in the last couple of days because some of these really stunning pictures have come out with our nice Chinese smog. But it is a super cool looking coaster. The layout's been out for a while now, but they've just recently finished the construction of the ride, and it is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Really narrow plot of land. It kind of is almost what something like Stealth or Saturn could have been. It's looking absolutely great. So what's cool about it is how everything's nestled into each other. So first of all, check out how this top hat is nestled into the Cobra roll that kind of wraps around it, and the and then you've got your supports for the whole thing that are holding those different parts up in a really, really interesting way. There's a loop also that goes around the Cobra roll, which you can kind of see here. And what you may have missed too is that there is a fast roll. Is there a better shot of it? There really isn't. But so right down here, that is a roll inversion at like crazy speeds. So at literally the top speed of the ride, which is posted at, is not posted, but I would assume is 60 something or 70 something based on that top hat. We've got a fast roll here, which is definitely pushing the boundaries for Mack among other things. But you've got your sequence here is station, launch, top hat, roll here at incredibly high speeds, then a really impressive Immelman, another airtime hill here into this wide Cobra roll, into a loop, into 2 airtime hills, and into brakes and there. So I think that's good. It's going to be a pretty impressive looking ride. Mack gets a lot of crap for the no forces, but I don't necessarily think that I don't think they're out there going, oh, let's make sure it's not that intense. I think there's a calculated approach to that as far as just making rides more accessible overall for guests. So I think I think there's not enough given, not enough credit given for that. I think Mack's doing a very nice job, but I'm pretty excited for it. This is a pretty interesting one. Now, the first thing that we have to look at is that we can't actually do quite what we want to do because the Cobra roll is not going to be able to go around the top hat because I would have to go 2 over in order to get to that point. So I don't think we can do that. But we can definitely get it inside. If I had larger corkscrews and zero and the half loops that angled out a little bit better, we could definitely give it a better shot for sure. Because one of the big thing here is just going to be trying to get this to wrap around thing and to sit at the proper elevation. Mack does have some forceless launches, but I don't really have an issue with that, to be honest. Like, they're fine. They're decent launches. They're on the whole, they could definitely be stronger in some instances. Okay, so we can either... We don't want to do that far. Because that's how we're getting up and over this. And I don't quite like that. We could always do our newfound non-inverting Cobra roll, which we'll see next with Kondaa. I'm not sure I like that either. So, what it looks like with... I could do a quarter loop for the Cobra, although it's still going to get us in the same spot that we were before. Let's see. How are you doing, though, Extreme? Good to see you. Thank you for coming by. Might end up lowering this here in a little bit. Well, thank you for lurking. Always appreciate the whether you're here talking or lurking. I'm happy to have you guys here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is if we did it from the outside, we would need to cover 8. It's called Hurricane Roller Coaster, and it is at Suzhou, Suzhou. Here we go. I will just link it. There we go. But it is a killer layout. I absolutely love this layout. It's easily one of my favorites here recently. But welcome in, Zara. The problem here is that now we have wide Cobra roll, and it just looks a little silly. Wide. Oh, not there we go. Really wide. Yeah, that's my problem there, is it's big oof as far as that goes. I suppose we can just do the interior Cobra roll, which is fine. Not my favorite. So I think that's what we're gonna have to do, honestly, is Because we've got the 4 units, so we can do it. I just was really hoping to get a little more interaction than that with it. We are going to scrunch this down just a little bit because I don't need it to be the same size. I'm a huge fan of how well the ride interacts, or the supports work for the whole thing. Okay, so let's do this. I wonder if we can put up straight at the top of the top hat and not have it look stupid. This looks so squat to do it that way. And I feel like if we do it this way, it looks even worse. Well, let's stick with this. I don't want to do a top hat that's any tighter than this, because I think those look really bad in the game. I would do. I think you kind of need the 6 at minimum. Horsescrew. There it is. You bring that one closer. Corkscrew. I'd rather have a standard 4 Cobra roll than not. Or then I guess really the other ones. The other thing that we can't do just based on spacing is interlock our Cobra roll and our loop as the real one has, but that's okay. All right, so let's get back to here. We have our crazy 0G roll. Well, not 0G roll, just barrel roll. I think it's going to be great, especially with those Mack seats. Can't you use half loops if it's on the inside now? You can, but it only offsets by 1. A full loop will offset by 2, but the half loop offsets by 1, so then it just puts it in the way of the top hat element itself. A little bit unfortunate in that regard. But right here, I will use one. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and give this side the 2. Okay. And then now we'll go back through and look at this. This has like 2 little hills on the way to a sloped brake run. Yeah, it's it's definitely compact, that's for sure. This would be great once X7 gets his Intamin track out, assuming that happens. This will be a great one for that. All right, 67's as high as we can go, so hopefully we'll get there. Otherwise, we're gonna have to use chain lift. See about how long that launch track is. Pretty nearly the whole way down there. And then we want to use Space K's Mack Mega Coaster. There you go. Yeah, that's the other way, is swap that. I mostly did it this way because it's just easier to build quickly. But you're right. Okay, we're going to put a 6-car train on there. Oh, do you? Okay, or are they? I missed that. And then these. Yeah, you gotta ask Rumi about Chris Sawyer. The rumor is that he is Chris Sawyer. Alright, let's see if we have enough speed to get up and over. Not a chance. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, ba-da. Okay. Do it the old school way. See if we have enough real estate for it. See what 80 does for us. Okay, got to 73, which is just enough, actually. Perfect. I'll take it. That roll is really fast. Holy cow. The rest of this layout is really fast. Okay, I'll take it. That's fine. It's fine. It's cool. It's cool. Let's add a block break here just to help this along, but oh no, that doesn't look good. Doesn't look good either. Stick with the blue. How fast is this? 62 miles per hour through that roll. RCT is not designed for speed rolls. Thank you for renaming the ride. Alright, well, I don't hate it. It's definitely more compact than the real thing. I wish we had a slightly larger ability to slightly pull out some of the sides of this, but not awful. The loop is appropriately paced, at least. We got our airtime hills kind of up at the end there. Slope breaks. Well, it is what it is. We're gonna say that is done. This one now renamed Wooden Roller Coaster 1. Here we are. Okay. So, 2 more, both Intamin. So we're going to end with some of the more popular ones here. So, first of all, let's look at Kondaa. Kondaa is Wallaby Belgium's new Intamin Mega Coaster. So this is the first Mega Coaster in a while. This ride is now testing. The big thing on this one is that it's got some really interesting elements. This photo shows a lot of those interesting elements. There we go. This photo shows a lot of these interesting elements. Take a drink. That's the first one in like 3 streams that I've missed. If you're new here, every time I forget to change the screen, we take a shot. I've currently taken a shot of water because I am boring. So this is, you can sort of think of this as an amped up Expedition G-Force almost. The space case, because it's a lift rather than a launch, could be that just based on the LSMs. So the drop here is near vertical, twisting, with a great airtime hill afterwards. Then there's this exceptionally large outward banked hill right next door. And then the next thing is this non-inverting cobra roll of some kind. So it doesn't really fully invert you. Technically it does, but we're not calling it an inversion. And then after that, it's a bunch of these low-to-the-ground hills, this figure-8 element here, and then a bunch of airtime hills all the way back to the start, and that's pretty much everything. So this should put, if it hadn't already, it's going to put Wallonie Belgium on the map. They've done very well over the past couple of years to do some pretty impressive expanded things. But it's a pretty exciting looking ride. Rather drab color scheme, but that's okay. Alright, and you can really see that outward banked corner. I mean, it's like 80 degrees outward banked. It's not small. You rename Death Trap. Alright. Where do we want to put this one? Right here. Back into the game. Okay. I don't know, I caught that one pretty quick. But fair. If you want to take a shot, go for it. Alright. We're building the B&M track again just because it's easier. So you can do this in a couple of different ways. You can go ahead and use the you can do kind of the diving corner. For me, this one looks pretty nearly vertical, so I'm going to go ahead and use the vertical. Okay, do ourselves a station here. And we'll use the Intamin LSM trains. These are Space K trains. And I believe Kondaa is going to have a 6-car train, which is correct. Our train. Okay. That's going to let us simulate this ride. I thought X7 did the Blitz ones and you did the LSM ones. Maybe I'm just going crazy then. Alright. Rather than using the smooth one, we're gonna make it a little bit tighter up top. Oh. Well, then I guess I'm wrong. Is it the Blitz one? The Blitz one's is the one that I want, I think. I wanted the newer one. Yeah, that's it. Oh, these. I do wonder that Extreme, if there's like a better, or if there's some kind of an answer to that, because it's really annoying. Alright, we can't do outward banked corners. We can do flat corners if we want, so we'll go ahead and do... I'm not really a fan of that at all. Let's see what that looks like. No thanks. We're just going to go ahead and use a banked corner. Okay, so the not inverting cobra roll is an interesting one, and I've seen a lot of people try it so far. And we're gonna do something like this, I think. It looks good from some angles. The Nova roll, I do like that. I've heard Phoba roll for fake Cobra roll. It's just wide. That's the biggest issue I have, though I guess we can do a later thing here. Oh, you're right. I did do it the opposite direction also. There we go. That feels too tight, actually. Oh, maybe not. What did I miss? I missed this. I don't know. What do you think? Big corners or small corners? I think I'm okay with this, but I wouldn't be opposed to doing the larger corners or even a flat corner or a flat section in between. I think that. See what a flat section looks like, just out of curiosity. You guys can vote on it. I don't know. What do you think about that? I actually don't dislike that because I think it stretches it nicely and it looks still smooth. We have one bad though in chat so far. Any other thoughts? I'm about to move it anyway. I'm going to curve it 90 degrees. Alright, I got one bad and most either, so I like the stretch, so I'm going to go with it. Okay. There we go. I don't know. To me, it doesn't look that bad. To me, it's just still a pretty continuous corner. I think there could be, or on the larger ones, maybe it's a little less nice, but I think I'm okay with it as far as this goes. Okay, so after this, we're getting a lot of these kind of fast airtime hills and low to the ground corners. But let's do this first to get up and over. Don't think we can get this clearance. Actually, we can. Okay. We have a couple of corners that are sort of buried within this one. That almost makes sense just to keep it flat. The real one is more or less flat the whole time. Not quite the fan of how this is just yet. Okay. That's black supports. Okay. How do we want to handle some of this? Petition as we look at other new piece types for a 45-degree piece. I don't care if it's specifically for lift hills. I would just love to have that. And hi, Roy, for following. Thank you for that. Good to see you here. Hope you're well. Okay, so let's do something like this. We can get some of that interaction going. Let me see what that pacing was, because this looked just a little bit slow here, potentially. But I'm kind of a fan of how everything is shaping up thus far. Let's turbo boost this lift hill a little bit. 9 miles per hour. And probably go even faster than that. Okay, so 40 over that hill. 32 over that hill. 29. We're losing speed quickly, but not too bad. 34 there. 50 here. Okay, so 25. I'm okay with that. That actually works all right. Then this return run. All that sort of our outward banked corner here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Perfect. So we are exactly where we need to be now. Put this in place. 9, 13, 18, 18, 2. Okay. Let's revise that quickly just to give this a space here. We want to be consistent with the way that we're putting in spacing. That includes up top here. Let's also go in here and smooth out the cornering. Not this one. All right. Take a look at this. Two trains. You know what? Just to be safe, we're going to go ahead and give the station another set of brakes, or a set of station platform there. We'll back up our block brakes by 2 here. Just give ourselves the space to work with. There we go. That fits a little better. Okay. I'm gonna bump this up, give it that cable lift feel. It's definitely an interesting element for sure. Couple of flat corners here, mostly for speed. Then we'll do a little bit of this crossover type stuff. This is meant more of an outward banked corner, which we can't really represent too hard. And we have one more hill here. We could do this one as a banked hill too if we wanted. And then to make sure that this gets off the blocks quickly, just go ahead and plop a block here at the end. Okay. We're losing a little bit of speed towards the end. We could change the mass on these trains just a little bit, just to get a slightly improved variety, but I don't think we need to. This is okay pacing throughout. Again, this uses the double spine Intamin track, the current stuff they're using, so we could use the we could go ahead and use the GigaCoaster track. We would need to merge in some stuff for the vertical right here, but everything else we could do in Giga if we wanted to get that older school B&M or Intamin Mega look. We can certainly do that here, which let's go back through and add this in. Go. There is a part of me that is very nostalgic for the old school Intamin Mega coasters, like your Expedition G-Forces and your Superman Ride of Steels of the world. We're not going to get that kind of coaster ever again, or at least not from Intamin. It's a little bit sad because those were such interesting rides and were great coasters. So I would love to see more of that kind of thing. But the new wave of interesting shaping and outward banked corners and weird stuff is really kind of taking over a little bit. But not that I'm complaining about that, but I just get nostalgic sometimes. Well, anyway, that is number 8. So that is Kondaa opening. Actually, it opens soon. I think it's in March of this year. So not too long to go for that one. So looking forward to seeing that up and running. Alrighty, so we saved what is likely going to be the best for last. So this is this is the one that I think most people seem to agree on is going to be the best of 2021. This is VelociCoaster. So VelociCoaster, terrible name, incredible coaster, or incredible looking coaster. This is the very highly themed, pretty incredible thing. Beautiful looking train. We got some pretty highly banked corners here. We've got some pretty fast rolls. Notably, this roll right here, which is down as low as it is to preserve the view across the lake to the Jurassic Center. Some pretty cool stuff here. Got a great big top hat, 2 launches. But it is a great looking ride. Yeah, there's all sorts of cool stuff here. Let's see what all we want to do. Coaster updates. I don't think there was a good POV video of it. Let me see if I can find a fan POV video here real quick, just worth seeing. Yeah, it looks like Amusement Insider has one from a couple of months ago. Let's pull this up. Give me just a second here. Oh, and thank you for that. I'll pull that up too. Okay. All right, so this is a fan POV. This is Amusement Insider. So this is not necessarily representative of your actual theming and everything, but this will show you kind of more or less what the stuff is going to be doing. We get our first launch here into this big climbing corner, almost an Immelman of sorts. Real highly themed section here. Dive loop right off the bat. And then a pretty tight collection of corners and airtime hills. So it's sort of like a more aggressive Terran. More airtime based Terran, I suppose. And then we dive almost subterranean here, and we take launch number 2, which is what puts us up and over top of our top hat. It shows some fins there. Those are not brakes. Those are just LSMs because Universal's got a lot of money in case the ride ever got stuck there. So we have our hang time element there. And then this sort of weird double helix thing. If I had any complaints about the ride, it'd be this is a weird element. But it certainly gets you track length, and I'll take it as far as that goes. Airtime hill into this fast roll. Whips through that roll, and then we're going to come up and wrap into the brakes. So pretty cool, pretty impressive looking layout for sure. Let's see here. We can also look at BioReconstruct. So this guy is great. He posts aerial photos of all of the different things in the parks. Here's Icebreaker. You guys said there was some recent VelociCoaster. Let's see if we can find it. Here we go. Okay, let's take a look at a few of these. So here you can see just how complex and compact the theming is. Here we have the top hat element with the 0G stall element, the double helix here, this outward banked corner that's got a long section of unsupported track, which is pretty neat, and our fast roll here, which is also a pretty long section of unsupported track. New bridge here connecting up onto the other side. Kind of cool to see where we've come from, which is, this a couple months back, and now we're here. But it's pretty darn impressive as to where everything landed. But it really is a good mixture of. I mean, it is kind of funny. It's like you're right. It's like an out and back coaster with this kind of spaghetti element here in the beginning, also. So let's run back to the game, and we'll see what we can do with this. We're going to go ahead and pick our B&M again, just because it's the easiest one to deal with for this kind of a thing. Okay, so the start of this is kind of up a little bit and has a dark ride section. Then here we will have cold break for show scene, and then we'll have our first of the launches. Go ahead and keep this set up kind of as a show scene of sorts. Okay, let's go ahead and use those same trains. We use the Intamin Blitz trains. This is also going to be a 6 across, or 6 deep train. Okay. We'll get off the end of the launch here with a one piece of straight track. I'm going to go ahead and do an Immelman. Maybe. Hang on. Let's see. See how this holds up. We could also do what we did earlier. I think I'm already feeling more towards this. But for the second one, we'll kind of come up and ooh, boy, that's not holding up very well. Max this out, see what we can get to. Maybe too fast. but for now we're going to stick with it. And Mavericks, I know you're working on something as far as this goes. If you shared any on that. Oh, it's done. Have you submitted it? Or will be? That's a little bit faster than I think we want. I won't open it this time just because I gotta get that all set up, but I will take a look at it later because I'm interested to see that. Big thing here is that there's a lot of speed to scrub off, so you gotta kind of pay attention to how everything is rolling for that. Kind of a nice sequence here. Not gonna get under there as easily as I had hoped. The other thing we can do is the same element we've been using all day here. Wrap this around pretty close to the ground here. As we want to get to that point where we can kind of launch out for that second launch here. Got our airtime kind of mixed into some of these elements here. The other option is to create more of a continuous corner here, but I think I'd put a flat section in there first just to spread ourselves out a little bit. Although in this form I don't really like that. How far off are we here? 30. I need just a little bit more length to do anything for that. Do our outward banked corner here. But then we run right into this. Just barely too tight. Go ahead and give this blue supports just because I think it's nice. we do kind of want to reuse a little bit of this, what we've done in this helix, to sort of mirror what's going on there down below. And then see if we can use that to wrap around and problem is we got our clearances in the way for this guy. We kind of do a reverse of the element we've been doing all day. Of course, that also gets us right into another spot there, so I'm not totally satisfied with that just yet. Trying to think through some of the considerations here. I think I might want to try this again. So we are, nothing wrong with starting again. Especially if you're not happy with how things are coming out. Okay, so now we're going to use this launch track sort of to cross over a few times. I've always been a fan of this sort of S-bend type element also. It's a nice way to get some use out of those diving corners. This one's not coming today. This one's being more of a little more of a pain than I initially expected, but some of these kind of rides can be tough. So no worries if you struggle with a coaster. I mean, I always try and reiterate that every couple of streams, and I kind of forget to talk about it sometimes, but a coaster doesn't always come terribly naturally, and I don't think you can expect it to all of the time. I spend a lot of hours on the coasters that I eventually put into my parks. Here we knock out 9 layouts in 4 hours, so our success rate is going to be limited at best. So don't let the success rate of kind of your thing, or don't feel like you got to be satisfied with something if you haven't knocked it out in a certain amount of time, because it's okay. Sometimes it just takes a little longer. Try something else. And then we may be onto something. Sort snaking our way through there, definitely interacting with the other rides, or the other portions of this ride. Not too much on the diagonals just yet, but keep in mind that's really important to have. In my opinion, the diagonals, or the use of diagonals, are the key to success in a lot of layouts. I think they really make a big difference. Okay. We're trying too to keep this pretty darn compact, since that's how the real thing is through this section. So that sort of factors in a little bit as we look at elements for this ride. I don't quite hate this, even though it's sort of a copy of what we're doing here to here. And also look at this as a double helix of sorts, or a single helix of sorts. That may not be a bad way to do it. We're getting a little bit messy here, though, is the only thing is that there's a lot of crossovers and a lot of concerns as far as that goes. Let's look at the pacing on this helix. It's not bad. Not bad. The thinking I just want to reference back on some of these pictures. Yeah, that's the thing, is I'm trying to set up for the other launch. Is the challenge. Okay. We're back across the launch. Because it's a pretty substantial first section that leads to that second launch. But let's try and figure out what we can do there, because that second launch wants to be probably right around here. Huh? All right. think we were onto the right track with this. I think we have here, though, is crossing over the other launch. Sometimes building backwards is what gets you there on some of these things. So there's nothing wrong with going backwards a little bit, because I feel like we're solving this as we go along. Okay, yeah, it's just a little bit too high. It's fine. Yeah, Hydro, I feel like it's super useful. Really just to try and get a good sense of what you're doing. I wish that one wasn't quite in the way, which it theoretically doesn't have to be. Just do that. Oh, we're just so close to lining up. But if this was a larger curve, it would. Nope, we're still off. I like the smaller curve here. No, they're certainly pushing to wrap up. It wouldn't surprise me here to see some a soft opening in April, probably. Which at that point I will need to get back on it and get back out to Universal, because it's been a fair bit of time since I've been out there. They've got a fair bit of interior work to do still, which I think that's the part where the enthusiasts are getting kind of excited, because they're seeing the coaster test like daily, but there's a lot of work to do outside of the outside of all that. Okay, I think we're almost there. I think I'm feeling that. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. And we'll go ahead and even put another station here if we're gonna do A pretty similar layout to the real thing. Let's hit our boosters here. We might need to use the chain lift just to see how far we can get. Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to decide if I wanted to do a full unload and load, or try and do something similar to the real thing. I'll probably pull that out. All right, let's see how our pacing is. Okay, that actually works just fine. I don't think we need it any more than that. Okay, we're gonna roll the opposite direction just because I like the way that looks. We're also gonna bring this down a little bit, I think. This is where we're gonna differ a little bit from the real thing in that I'm gonna not do a figure 8. But we do need to set up here for our roll element. Because it is sort of the signature thing. What's the best part? What am I taking out? Because I've got the... I don't know, I'm having a hard time with the double helix here, because I don't really like the real thing as far as the overall look goes. Yeah, I don't like the look of it in real life as much as the real thing too, but it's... Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we do this. Let's... Maybe a little high. Okay, we're gonna do a roll into a drop. And maybe instead of the undulating helix, we can do an undulating figure 8. Oops. Go. There you go. I don't actually dislike that. I think that works just fine. It's going to be really fast, too. And it flows nicely. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 here, which means that we want the roll to sit here. And then 2, 4, and 6. Need this to end here. All right, then we'll come on back down, get into the brakes. Don't like this just yet. Figure out something else here. Probably just do the larger curve. Okay. Okay. And just as one more added bit, we can give that some outward banking. Yeah. And we'll get ourselves glued up here a little bit. And I will go ahead and take out that second station. Okay. So, go ahead and put 3 trains on here. I want to just do a test real quick. We're going to put a block on that. See how it turns out. Actually, that's going to turn out fine because there's a giant dark ride section beforehand. Well, not a giant, but it's big enough. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It certainly fits true to form, which is a little bit weird because this is very highly based on a specific location within the park, so it's a lot of existing conditions. Certainly wouldn't recommend you just go out and plop this and then build around it. I think it's going to look forced when you do that. The supports are not blue in real life. I just like the look. And it's a little bit of a nod to Mavericks' design because he's got blue track on his, and I thought it looked really nice with the custom palette that he's using. But yeah, in real life, it is all black. Okay. Well, that works a little bit. So it's earlier, or it's later on than I wanted, but if I put the block break right here at the like hold break, I guess, point, I don't think we would have caught up, or I think this would have caught up to this one. We can see. Let's check, and just out of curiosity, check and see what it does. But yeah, when you look at it, objectively outside of, when you build it here on a blank spot of land, it's a weird layout. But I think the overall is nice, and it certainly frames things nicely. I do appreciate their attention to detail in how they framed the roll and the flat section with the building behind it, or well, opposite of that, how they framed the building with the roll and the flat section, so it doesn't obscure the views there. So there's definitely a consideration as far as that goes. Yeah, it's a nice long layout, so definitely pretty good. Yeah, I don't think a block is bad, but I also think that I'm about to get a train stuck on a top hat, depending on how fast this goes, and I think it's not going to get there fast enough. We're racing. Let's see. Okay, no, I think we'll be fine. We'll be good. We'll be good. Not too far off, though, because the block is just clear now, and that one's just hitting launch 2. So, yeah. That works. Okay. Well, and then we can also, out of curiosity, look at this as far as old school goes. Had to put in our track and everything, but we'll stick with Twister for now because I don't want to put in all the dummy tracks. Yeah, we could do another train. I've got the space for it, but we'll stick with that. I'm using my default colors here, which I don't know. We'll go with that. All right. Well, that is number 9. So by means of recap, we'll go around and look at the 9 that we already did. So we started with the Dino's Wonder Wheel park, the Vekoma SFC. We moved from there to the Vekoma double launch coaster. We're just holding up quite well. I think that turned out nicely with that top hat there. That was a group effort with the chat. We went from there to the B&M Hypercoaster, which I think turned out pretty nicely overall. And then our compact little vertical drop. From there, we went to, where is it? There it is. We went to our B&M Invert. This is Monster at Gronalund inspired. Then off of the break, we got our wooden coaster. So this is Leviathan, based off of Leviathan at SeaWorld Australia. And then we did our Mack coaster. This is Hurricane at Suzhou Amusement Forest Land World something or another. And then we had our 2 Intamin. So the first Intamin, which somehow I've lost, is Kondaa at Wallaby, Belgium. And then the second one is this. The second Intamin is VelociCoaster, or some variety of sorts. So that's it for today. I thought this was a pretty good one, actually. We are probably going to get back to this in 2 weeks. I'm not quite sure. We might have a 3-week pause, but we will see how that all shakes up. I've got a couple here planned. I don't know when they're going to go. The first one's going to be, I'm not sure which order it's going to be, but I want to do traveling coasters. I want to do wild mice, I guess. at some point, although that one's going to be kind of a quick stream, so I might need to plan for more stuff. I want to do a, had suggested to do a stream for ride layouts or models that were offered but never got built. So I'm just putting together 9 options for that one. I thought that was a clever idea. We have Weird Oddity Rides number 2. That one was a pretty well-received stream the other week, month, I guess. Mack Big Dipper would be a good one. And then at some point I'm just going to go do manufacturer type streams. We did one for Arrow, but I do want to look at something like go through and do all the B&M models. Also look at mock rides for sure. Look at a bobsled, do some other things like that, because we haven't done too many of those sorts of rides. So we'll see. There's definitely quite a bit of stuff that we can do. Just a matter of trying to actually do it at this stage. So lots to see there. But yeah, so we're doing good. Yeah, I thought about that. He did comment asking for a bench of Wild Mouse too, so I may have to throw that into the Wild Mouse stream when we do there. But yeah, but you're right though. V1 is a Mack Big Dipper is a pretty tough layout to do properly, mostly because you don't really have the same sorts of pieces that you need in RCT. But it's a pretty interesting one. I wish there were some more models out there so there's a little bit more inspiration to work from, but there's the 2 that exist plus a number of other proposed models that Mack has put out, so definitely not for lacking of inspiration and things like that. Tomorrow we will be on stream building coaster models, as we have been the last couple of Sundays. So if you're interested, definitely follow the channel here and you'll get the notification when I go live. I'm not sure what time that's going to be tomorrow. It's usually around like 10 a.m. Eastern time. But yes, last week it was in the afternoon, so it might be around then too. As always, if you have any suggestions of rides you'd like to see, such as the Mack Big Dipper, definitely let me know, and I can figure out how they can fit into a stream, and we'll get that taken care of. Thank you all for watching all these. You guys definitely make this worth the doing, so thank you for the feedback and the comments through all of these so far. That's all for today. Definitely follow this channel if you would like to see some notifications when I go live. If you want to support the channel further, you can subscribe to it. You can also get onto my YouTube channel, which is in the link below, and definitely subscribe to that on YouTube, because that's where I'll post all my videos. That's sort of the primary channel there, so that's where everything goes. But until next time, thank you guys very much for watching. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.